For me, a sculpture is you're altering a space and trying to imagine how it would make you feel in it. So that kind of heightened sensory experience of neurodiversity is like, is that why I can see things that seem blatantly obvious to me that another can't?
I'm going to throw that to you.
Yeah.
You're masking less, aren't you?
Yeah, you noticed it.
Yeah.
I think it's empathy, and I'm able to articulate and understand
Yourself.
things. Yeah. And I've been sitting here in previous conversations thinking, I do that. I say that. I'm like that.
Once I got diagnosed, I was like, I literally cannot disentangle ADHD from my making and my brain and the creative, nor would I want to, but they're so interlinked, and so if I didn't have it, I don't think I could do what I do.
Right from day dot with this series of television programs, we've wanted people to remove the shame. As a young woman who typically wasn't picked up in time, we have to change the narrative. Your glory and your success, I think that's a really strong message to take out to the ADHD community, and indeed the community that doesn't know it's the ADHD community yet.
I'm not shameful, but if I don't say it, then I feel like I'm hiding it, and then I feel like I am shameful.
Ella, welcome.
Thanks.
It's good to see you. Good to meet you in the flesh. The concept of having you on the programme was sold to me. I want you to meet my friend Ella. She's amazing. She's ADHD, and she does some really cool things with a chainsaw and wood. And that was the sell. And I have to say, when I spoke to John and said, I think we've got a really good special guest coming on here in relation to this, John bought in straight away. But I'm going to ask you to open things up. Talk to me about a chainsaw, wood and ADHD.
Yeah. Well, so I would describe myself as a chainsaw carver. And I reckon there's probably under 200 of us in the UK professionally working. I mean, there's more carvers, but like as your job sort of thing. And I was at a competition the other weekend, chainsaw carving competition, where there was 25 of us carving in a short time frame. We had to kind of make a sculpture. And sitting around the campfire, I think most of them sort of would either refer to them as ADHD or sort of acknowledge that a lot of them probably have it. So it seems to be a art form that is perfectly designed for an ADHD.
It suits the creative side of it, doesn't it? And the entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And when did you get
quick
Yeah.
making, kind of the quick fire sort of creativity?
Yeah, and is there almost a sort of therapy in you must go into a flow state, and that's a pretty serious tool that you're using as well, right?
Yeah, it's a perfect combination of like adrenaline, concentration, thought process, working out, and then finding out what happens. So it's sort of a blend of all of it.
And where does ADHD fit into it? Like Phil said, so when did you get diagnosed?
So I was diagnosed at 38, so 2 years ago. And I was on my knees. I was crumbling, and somebody had sort of, it became obvious to me that I was, and then I needed that understanding and validation, and I needed the meds.
Let's talk about on your knees and crumbling.
Yeah.
Are you all right to go there?
Yeah.
Because I think it's important if we can talk about where you were, where then you've got to, and what, as a middle-aged woman, if I can say that, a young woman, better words, Philip, a young woman, the encouragement that can give others.
Yeah.
That's the point. So you're on your knees.
So I'm 38. My career is getting better and better. I'm getting more successful. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old at that point. And all of the things prior to being a mum was fine. I'm sort of, just ticking along. I don't know, whatever I was doing, and it was okay. Whatever I was doing, I couldn't do. And then I didn't realise that whatever was regulating me or not, or coping, just there was nothing left of me. And I was getting to the point where I was like, this is not working. And I was like trying to hypnotise my way out of my brain. I was trying to get CBT. I was trying to have marriage counselling. I was trying to have it was just not nice. And I was sort of sitting on the sofa. I think the thing is about ADHD is when you see people do things, it's like, but are you having a nice time doing it? Like if you see kids being really naughty, they're not feeling really proud of themselves. They're not having a lovely time. It's not like, and I was sitting on the sofa watching TV. I was not having a nice time. I was so sick of my brain not moving and not doing anything that I was like, I'm just going to press pause on my brain for a minute and just watch something that brings me joy. So outside of that, you'd look at it and I was doing nothing. But the whole time I was in like paralysis and turmoil and being like, I was just in overwhelm. And then knowledge of the finding out that I was, and then subsequently getting meds and stuff was just like.
But what led you to that? So in that crisis and kind of downward spiral, did someone plant the seed that you might have ADHD? Did you start looking in?
Yeah, so I basically was like feeling like chaos. And I was like, so I had a diagnosis of dyslexia at university. So I was like, right, okay. At uni, when you're trying to write an essay, there's like an adult person that you go, this is how you go to do this. And they coach you through it and stuff. And I was like, there must be that version from like being an adult person. Or like, because I've never really done I've never worked in a professional setting where you can mirror people. So I don't know how to do office work. I don't know how to, so everything I'm doing, I've like worked out myself, and I've never been able to see other people do it. So I don't have any systems. So I was like, surely there's like an adult version of that goes, when you do a business, you be back. So I called the dyslexic hotline and was like, this is my problem. What do I do? And they were like, well, you could go to Access to Work and they might be able to get you some coaching or something. So I did that and got a coach. And then she kept chatting to me and she was like, with your ADHD and stuff. And I was like, so embarrassing. You keep saying this. And she was like, and I think after like the third session or something, she was like, it's just everything you've actually described is actually that. It's not really just the dyslexia. Because I can read, not that dyslexia is all about reading, but like I do have dyslexia, but it's not so pronounced that it was causing me all these issues. It was actually the ADHD that I didn't know. Yeah. And so she was just saying it so casually. I was like, that's so embarrassing, stop it. And then when she said it, and I was like, all the descriptions of like my paralysis and like my inability to sort of get going, and this, all this stuff was going on. And she then explained it to me, and I was like, oh my God. And it just went boom, 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 boom. And I was like, oh my God, that is what it is. And then I looked back and it was like, God, I've just had like this lens put over my entire life. And I had to go through this. So I got diagnosed, but I had to also go through this whole period of like realigning all of my memories with a different filter on it. And was like, God, I've got to now look at all of these things that have happened and be like, that's why all of these things are happening, good and bad, and almost having to go through like a traumatic period of grief, of not grieving for, but just sort of just being like, it's all right, it wasn't your fault, like it's all right. It was really actually quite an emotional
grief and relief.
Yeah. I was going to say, how was it when you sort of went to look back on that period?
Yeah.
You've had, one of our patients, if we can use that word, called it the pink cloud moment, when you suddenly get the realization. Yeah. But then there's a whole model of psychology that says you then do look back, and you look back and looking for blame and shame and what have you. How did that period go for you then? Once you clearly went through quite a lot of reflection at that point.
Yeah. Well, it was also, lots of things. It was like sort of high five me for being like getting here and being like still doing what has happened, and also high five to my parents for being awesome, and just being like, that was incredible that I've got to now with like as good a view of myself as I could have, with all the other views of myself too, but within the sense of shame was as low as it could be, and the sort of sense of self was as good as it could be, but it it could have been a lot better, and I could have had a lot less things happen. But actually they did, I reflect on my childhood, and they are and were amazing, and they didn't know what was going on, but what they could see was their view of me never wavered in that I'm a nice and good person, and that my behavior and the situations are environmental. And so they were relentlessly trying to change the environment. And so I was so lucky that I was never made to feel that I am the issue. And I now know how unbelievably lucky and possibly unusual that raising of that situation was, because they did such a good job.
It's lovely you said that. I hope they get to watch this as well.
Yeah.
Because how many things have we unearthed, like Lawrence Talalia and the schools, where how many kids that are labelled bad, and are treated as bad. They're not bad people. And then the environment doesn't support them. So that's powerful, what you just said.
And all behaviour is communication. And I think they could acknowledge that I was communicating a lot of stress and a lot of distress and a lot of uncomfortableness. And they managed to get me out of school at 14, and I went into a college setting. So it was a school refusers class. So I was of the age to take my GCSEs, but I was only allowed to take 3 because of the way the setting up worked, and but actually it was amazing, and I could take the ones that I wanted to do, that I loved and were really exciting. And then and because it was in this setting and it was all about getting people back into education and stuff, I took them at the correct time, but with other people who were older, and it was amazing. And it was just...
What were they that you took?
So I can't really remember which order or what they did, but I think I did photography, art and English. And then the next year I did maths, geography, and maybe something else. I can't remember the other one.
So you led with the arts. And now we get to track from that non-attendance of school into a setting that was bringing out the best in you.
But I became like evangelical. It was amazing. I hated school. I would stand outside the classroom and be like, I'm not standing here waiting to be told off something that I haven't done. Or I may have done it. I may not have realised I'd done something. But I'm sure as hell not going to stand outside this classroom for the pleasure of you then coming to tell me off. I'm going home. See you later. I'm not going to be
Which gets you into more trouble.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm not going to wait for the privilege. Like what? Yeah. I'm not going to do that. I'd rather go home.
That's amazing. I had 6 detentions waiting for me coming back to the next term, and I got them all for missing detentions I didn't want to go to, so they doubled them up.
Yeah.
And I didn't go back to that school.
It's not working.
No, it's not working. It's a broken system.
But to take that positive bit forward into an alternative setting, and it does link back to Lawrence and the work we're going to do with PRUs, but into that positive setting, giving you subjects that motivated you, which by the sounds of it got you back into the whole concept of education.
Loved it.
And proving yourself that you could be educated as well. And going on to then, it sounds like some of the subjects that were less motivational, but you brought back into the education remit.
But also, Mum and Dad were like, look, nothing else matters, but it's impossible to move forward if you do not have maths and really English. Like, just get maths and English. And I knew, I was like holding on, being like, okay. All right, I can deal with this. But there's also a social disparity as well, because at that point, Mum and Dad could see that it wasn't working, and they paid for tuitions. You know, and that is where it really diverges. Can you buy technology to help you do alarms and do all stuff? So, no, then you can't get to work on time. You can't do those things. Probably lose your job. Can you pay extra money to get tuition? Then you can excel and get your best of you. Or no, you can't, and then you don't achieve. You know, and that is where the like haves and have-nots. It really, you know, will you be a successful ADHDer or will you be a criminal ADHDer? And that's where it.
So the social construct around this is vast, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's skip that social construct if we can. I'm going to come back to it because you went to university.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know where you're going to take this part of the conversation, but I'm just going to ask an open question. When you got to university and there you are without that social construct around you, back in the norm, how was it?
Well, my rebelling happened at 14 in the safe space of like my parents. By the time I got to, I was like, oh, you're so boring. You're like 18 being like,
you got it out your system.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, grow up, you know, sort of, I'm here to learn. Do you not know how great learning is? Like, you know, because I was so like in love with education again that I was like, oh God.
You were there to learn something that you were
I was like, I'm here to study. Like, stop doing what you're doing. I mean, I had a lot of fun too.
How was it studying? As an untreated woman with ADHD in university.
I also, at that point, didn't know how to do dyslexia either.
Okay.
So that was helpful. But no, I did find out that, which was of help. But it was arts and it was creation. So it was playing to my strengths. It's all the things that worked. Mm-hmm. And that's when I found chainsaws. So
see, that's interesting because that shows how important purpose and passion is. And actually, the way you were going with that question was like, did you struggle with it?
Yeah.
Which is exactly what I there's so many parallels. I had to have extra tuition and lost a whole half term before GCSEs just to have maths tuition. So it's amazing. But I did go to university to just try and understand whether that's where I should be, and I left. And without knowing if I've got dyslexia, obviously ADHD. So the purpose and the passion is the key ingredient that kept you focused. You probably had coping mechanisms to get around concentration because you were like, I'm here to learn. That's really interesting.
But also as well, it's like with ADHD and all that stuff, it's like, it's not that you can't do those things, but at what cost?
Yes.
How much does it take from you and how much is left of you at the end? You know, and if doing all these other things, your battery is being run down so much, then like you're going to prioritize living life and not doing those things otherwise, because it, you know, you've got to kind of weigh up how much things take from you. And I think,
you know, it's a sliding doors moment, isn't it?
Yeah.
You were able to go and do a subject that you're passionate about.
It fills me back up each time.
And absolutely. You say, you know, and I found chainsaws. Can I just say that's not a normal line? That is.
I was a bit nervous coming in today.
Because I've been to university and I know lots of people. I know. So I really think it would be, we'd be cheating you if we didn't explore the chainsaw bit, because it's who you are now, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, what's a shame though, goes back to the education setting, kind of, so many good things about it and so many annoying things. And in my degree, I was the last year where you could either do a dissertation or work with a practicing artist and keep a journal. And I was like, wait, I get to keep a diary and hang out with an artist, or I write a really long essay. I mean, obviously I'm going to do that one. And I was like, and it was like literally like, what tools did you use? I use these things. And I was like, God, this was like cheating. This is hilarious. And at the end I got a good grade and I was like, this is mental. So I was like, obviously I'm going to do that. And then I'd seen a carver at Glastonbury and was like, I just remembered it. It was like there. This is why experiences are so important. Like you don't know when the nugget's going to or the seed is going to grow or whatever. And so I saw a carver when I was like 13, 14, filed it away. And then when they said you could either work with practicing artists, I have no conscious idea of why that was like, obviously I'm going to do that. But I was like, I'm going to find the person who did the sculpture at Glastonbury and search them out and find it. It was quite long-winded because it was years before and it was, you know, had to find the person. But
that's the hyper-focus bit, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's where we can relate. When we all want something, you obviously
happened. You found them.
Yeah, so I found them. And then as a counterbalance, I had to find another one. So that was, and this is early, like Facebook came out when I was at uni. So it was before anyone was on social media. So you could just be like, I'll just look someone up. But it wasn't, you couldn't. And also these kind of people don't live lives that are like conventional anyway, so may not even have a computer or a phone or live in a house with walls. So those things were not easy to, you know. So I found them, and then one guy was like very methodical and was like, you know, you remove the bark, you take it all off, and you do this, you know what you're doing beforehand. And I was like, great, great, okay, right, yeah. Mm-hmm. And then this other guy dressed as a pirate was like, just cut this bit, do this, right? And I was like,
gravitated.
Which way are you leaning? Yeah.
I like this. And he was like doing Glastonbury and doing all this stuff. So I like tag team up. But the first sculpture I ever made with him was like this Pegasus, which was like, I don't know, 8 meters tall or something. And I carved the head. And I was like, all right, cheers. But I liked it. It was good. And I was good at it immediately. I could see it. I could understand it. I could understand the space. I could hear and use the tool. Like I knew it felt right. So yeah, and I ended up working alongside him, but I did it in my final piece. And so it was in London and everyone else was fighting for space. And I was in the car park with a chainsaw with the double-decker buses going past. But yeah, and it was brilliant. And it was the first time I'd connect, because you hear other people talking about materials that they're connected with. And I was like,
you found your niche.
And then I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Because you said earlier when we were talking off camera, like, how do you practice? You literally you learn on the Pegasus head, right?
Or just make firewood until you've made something you want to show someone.
Yeah, but a lot of your work is commission based. If you were going to carve your ultimate kind of vision that you'd love to do, the challenge, if you like, what would it be?
Well, I love working in more abstract forms. I think because the idea of making something that's a thing, you have to stop and look and keep like referencing, whereas the feeling of being in it and in the moment and just responding to what's happening,
going where it goes.
Yeah, is an amazing feeling. And I think that's the buzz. So when I get asked to do more abstract commissions, I'm like, yes, because then I know I can be like in it. And
you referenced earlier before we came on camera about the work you're doing, about the sensory element of what you're up to, and I think it'd be really brilliant to explore that, because your love of wood is very clear. Well, actually, I'm going to pose the question. You said you found the medium that you really... Now, that could be the chainsaw for all I know.
I think it is, but also the forgiveness of wood, the fact it's an abundant material, like it's not a pressure, so it's not weighted, it's very heavy, but it's not weighted in as a financial cost of, if you do this, it's going to cost you a lot of money.
Yeah,
like, you know,
like
so
a massive piece of marble.
It's very freeing that you can just give it a go, and if it's rubbish, just burn it. Or
I'm worried about this table now.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, but that layer of pressure is not there. So it's quite freeing in the way that you can do it, and it's a very immediate way of action. It's thought to action is immediate, so you don't have to fire it and then wait for it to dry.
So that's more ADHD as well, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It's a very direct way of making.
And what about your senses?
So classic. I love, like, you know, people sparkle at you sometimes. And I was in the gym, and this lady, and I said, I travel a lot for work. I went, what do you do? She went, oh, well, actually, I'm a lecturer on creativity. And I was like, oh, right, tell me more. And she was like, and I was chatting her ear off so much. She was like, we actually have to get to the end of this, like, workout. And I was like, oh, yeah, sorry. And I kept asking her loads of questions. And in the end, I was like, please, can I just, like, I need to know more. Send me your papers. I want to know. I want to read what you've written. And she's like, so she's a specialist in like, she's a neuroscientist or psychologist in creativity. And we were talking about, because once I got diagnosed, I was like, I literally cannot disentangle ADHD from my making and my brain and the creative, nor would I want to, but it is one that they're so interlinked. And so if I didn't have it, I don't think I could do what I do, because of the energy and the hyper focus and the, you know, and all that stuff is like, it's, you know, it's really helpful for it. But we were talking about, why does there seem to be more of neurodiverse people within the arts? And what is that for? You know, why is that the case, and what is going on there? And so we were sort of talking about all the reasons behind, and trying to explore it more together. And I'm just nosy and love asking people questions, so I was like, what about this? And so we like to, you know, so it's quite helpful to chat. And she was trying to see basically she was looking more into it as well, and there's no research into the sensory experience of, you know, neurodiversity. And I would argue things like, I wonder if the reason why I'm more in tune with something is the sensory aspect of it, in that need to move, or the connection with the space. Like, a space really affects how I feel, and it can, so for me, a sculpture is, you're altering a space and trying to imagine how it would make you feel in it, and that kind of, do you want it to be imposing or little, or, you know, whatever. And with a music, that kind of music tick, if you've got something that's looping and looping and looping and looping and looping, and it's like, and actually is that the beginning of a song, and how you get to your making? And is that so that kind of sensorial, heightened sensory experience of neurodiversity is like, is that why I can see things that seem blatantly obvious to me that another can't, because my sensory experience is heightened within that range?
There's a kind of, it's interesting, because if you look at the classic response to sensory experience and neurodiversity, you'll be talking about the person that can't cope with that different toothpaste because of the feeling, or can't cope with the cone through their head.
That feeling, and why is that so heightened? And
why is that a negative?
Yeah.
Well, because you know what you've just explored there, and I think with great passion, is you have those sensory feelings, but in your world, in your way of applying them, you've been fortunate enough to make those. And I've never ever heard that before.
Yeah.
Your sense of sensory experience is heightening what you're getting out of your life.
Yeah.
And often we have conversations about the sensory experience being a barrier, a break, a handbrake on things. Certainly a reduction of normal pleasure with things. And here you are you are the first person who's been able to articulate. I've had 20 odd years in this business.
Yeah.
Who's ever articulated the nature of the sensory experience in such a positive way.
Yeah.
And I also, if I can, I don't think I've ever found such a square peg in such a square hole. You know, if you were to ask me to describe a chainsaw carving person,
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't describe you stereotypically. And yet,
Very true.
Square peg, square hole. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And I can't wait for other people to hear your story because of that super positive element to what you bring to the table. And I, if I can, and you know me in these scenarios, I'm always looking for what challenges have you overcome? What's your hardship that you overcome? You've talked about some of those. Let's leave then for a minute. What's the future for you? Because you're clearly moving towards, if not at the top of your game. Look at you, the passion in you, and the way that you what's next?
Well, I think having this new lens, understanding that what has been going on and why my brain is the way it is, has unlocked this brake that I've been putting on that has meant that I've been trying to go against it, and actually understanding how to go with it has been really freeing, and also made me understand how environmentally so many things are, the factors are massive. And I think I keep going through this phase, especially working with Wendy, where I'm like, she's very academic and read papers, like it's very impressive, and then I'm like, that's actually not my role in this. My role is to not do that, and it's to think, yeah, but what about this, and why does that go together, and why is that, you know? And she can do all the academic stuff, and then I can be really excited about other stuff, and then the conversations together can, I don't know, find out what happened. But I do think there's a role. I think I'm interested in that and where that goes. And
so you're not masking anymore, are you?
No.
You know, I'm going to throw that to you.
Yeah.
You know, you're masking less, aren't you?
Yeah, you noticed it.
Yeah.
I think it's empathy, and I'm able to articulate and understand things. Yeah. And I've been sitting here in previous conversations thinking, I do that. I say that. I'm like that, but I'm not necessarily saying it. It's crazy parallels with some of the stuff we've already had in this conversation. But, you know, I'm already thinking back to your sort of question of the future and so on. The fact that you're a mum and you had such key kind of parenting steers, your understanding of ADHD and so much of how you describe that makes you such a good mum for kids that, dare I say, may well have ADHD on the basis of what I've learned from you, which is it's hereditary and so on. And you understand that you're a more patient, empathetic mum.
Not always, no.
Oh no, I get it. I'm there. Mine is slightly older than yours, but that's also a key thing you can bring into parenting. And when they might be struggling at school, there's this whole part of your brain that's like, I understand this now.
I guess if we go full circle, your folks really enabled you, didn't they?
Yeah.
And despite all of the lack of understanding of what's going on in it, they got it in their way, didn't they? And that's not what we hear a lot. I guess your job is to be those parents with that greater level of understanding.
Well, yeah, but also as well, I do feel like there is, at this point, the reason why I wanted to talk more, and the privilege to do so, was that with this greater awareness, there's an explosion in people understanding. There's also an explosion in people in the public eye, but arguably that's because more people in the public eye have gone to that role because of it suits their, you know what I mean? So it sort of looks disproportionate, and then everyone's got ADHD then. And I found that when I got my diagnosis, I almost like had to come out.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm not shameful, but if I don't say it, then I feel like I'm hiding it, and then I feel like I am shameful or feeling shame, and I shouldn't feel shame, you know.
It's a brilliant, again, articulated amazingly, because right from day dot with this series of television programs, we've wanted people to remove the shame and change the narrative.
Yeah.
And here you are as a young woman, not yet middle-aged, reflection in action there, as a young woman who typically wasn't picked up in time. But you've got it now, and here you are, and we have to change the narrative. And I think your passion, your glory, and your success, which many will bask in, I think I think that's a really strong message to take out to the ADHD community, and indeed the community that doesn't know it's the ADHD community yet.
Well, that's the awareness, right?
Absolutely.
That's the key why behind it. And you've used the word articulation a couple of times. It's amazing what you're saying, how you're saying it. People need to hear it, right?
Yeah, I think you've got loads more to give. And I think being with you today on this has been an absolute highlight for me. Genuinely. I can't wait. I need to see you geared up with a lump of wood and a chainsaw. I need to experience.
We need one behind every guest that films from there. We need one there as a sort of permanent fixture.
Yeah, I want one for my office, for my garden, and so on. But no, I want to see you do it, because I think you will demonstrate an incredible amount of right place, right time, right skills, absolute happiness when you're doing that.
That's really interesting. Sorry to interrupt, but just you're right. The pleasure of watching someone in flow state doing what they love, probably with headphones on, zen, I would watch that.
Yes.
It's not about the finished product. It'd be about actually, not for 25 hours, which was one of the ones that you said, but you know what I mean? Like if you were busy about to go make something now, we would be sat there watching you and just.
But actually what you just said though is something, so that is creativity, is the process. It's not what the outcome is. And I think that like so many people are disconnected from the doing and think about, especially, the productivity, the thing that I have at the end, and actually being creative or having a creative outlook. We had a lot more of them inadvertently, because you'd have to mend, you'd have to fix, you'd have to go and get the firewood, you'd have to do a lot of things that weren't classified as creative or classified as sort of filling you back up activities, but they were things we all had to do, and we don't have to do them. So then you have to do a hobby, but then if you have a hobby, you have to show people that and actually there's like that pressure is massive, and that it's not, and none of that is that isn't what it is. And actually we all need creative outlooks of doing, and bin it, burn it, chuck it away after, don't show anyone. It's the act of doing is the thing. Do you know what I mean? I think it's.
How would you describe yourself? Just to finish this off, because I mean professionally, what is the expression you would use on your business card? Not that you would have a business card.
I do actually.
Do you?
It says chainsaw.
It's made of wood.
Yeah.
Ragged edges.
Chainsaw.
Chainsaw carver and sculptor.
Wow. Well, you're the first one of those I've met.
There's only 200.
Yeah. So it's a niche market, but I wish you dominance in that market, and I think you'll get there. Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Very much.